Good evening, sir.
Yes. Okay, good evening, everyone.
Good evening, sir.
Today's bio class.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So today we'll continue with tissues chapter. In the last class, we had done plant tissues. Today we'll be starting with animal tissues.
Okay, sir.
Yes.
Sir, actually, in the mock test, and this also came.
Which thing?
So, mock test of science.
Animal tissue also came.
Yes, sir. Actually, you taught us only plant tissues.
Okay. Okay. Anyway, we'll be completing animal tissues in a week or two.
Okay, sir.
Give me 1 minute till everyone join.
Okay, sir. Sir, actually, you write the notes, no, sir. Can you please share those in the voice?
Okay, whatever we write, whatever I am writing and whatever PDFs are there, you want that in the Wise app, right?
Yes, sir. So,
Okay,
means it will be easy for rechecking.
yeah, sure.
Okay, sir.
I will I'll surely do that. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thanks.
Actually, just after your class, I start having some other classes. Okay, so there I will get time. Even today, I will be sharing. Okay, today I don't have any class after this, so I'll be sharing. Mhm.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Let's continue. Okay, now I think almost everyone has joined, so we can start with the animal tissues. See, animal tissues, as we'll be studying here, like we had seen that the plant tissues, they are divided under three categories. The plant tissues, they are divided as, so we have the plant tissues which were divided as a meristematic tissue and permanent tissue, right? The permanent tissue were further divided as simple permanent and complex permanent, whereas the meristematic tissue were also divided under three categories as the meristematic tissues being divided the apical meristematic, lateral meristematic, lateral meristem, and intercalary. So you have, in the case of animal tissue, see what is the main difference between a plant tissue and animal tissue? Can anyone think of?
So,
Yeah,
plant
sir,
tissues.
plants are
So plant tissues
Mhm.
means few of the plant tissues will be dead and few living, whereas in animal tissues, maximum are living.
All the animal tissues, they are made up of they are made up of living cells.
So about hair.
Yeah, hair is not a tissue. It's just a protein.
Yes, okay.
Okay. So all the animal tissues, they are made up of living cells only. Also, in the plant cells, we observe that most of the cells,
Cell.
they lose their capability to reproduce.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And they
That
become permanent.
Yeah, they become permanent. So when they are dividing, they are meristematic. Slowly they differentiate they perform their some specific function, and then slowly and slowly they become slowly they get converted into the dead cells. Okay. So the life cycle which is there for a plant cell is different from an animal cell. So in animal tissue, all the all the tissues which are there, or all the cells which are there, they do not lose their capacity to reproduce. Okay. So all cells, they have the capacity to reproduce. Okay. Only thing, there will be some specific things which we'll be studying about the RBCs or the red blood cells. So first of all, we see what are the different types of animal tissues that are there. So the different types of animal tissues that we have, the very first type of the animal tissue which we study is the epidermal tissue, or it is the tissue which forms the covering. So in the animal tissue, the very first type of tissue that we'll see here is epidermal tissue. So this is epidermis or epidermal. So very first type we study about epidermal tissue. So the epidermal tissue, as the name suggests, epidermal means the outer covering. The tissue which forms the outer covering is called as epidermal tissue. So up to now, if we think of outer covering, most of the people or most of the students, they think of the outer covering only as the skin. Yes. So remember, the skin is not a tissue. Skin is an organ made up of a number of tissues. Okay, and your skin, it is forming the covering of only the outer part of your body. What about your cheek? Isn't your cheek packed from the inside also?
So,
Yes, your cheek is packed from the inside also. If you take out your kidney, so isn't that kidney also having an outer covering?
so every organ has an outer covering. Also, even the cells have the outer covering, cell membrane.
Yes. So all the organs, they have an outer covering, and the coverings of the organs, they are made up of epidermal tissue. Okay. So the epidermal tissue will be found as outer covering of kidney. They will be found as outer covering of the alimentary canal, outer covering of the forming the inner linings of the stomach. Okay, forming the outer lining of the stomach. Everywhere we have the presence of the epidermal tissue. Even our skin is also made up of the epidermal tissue. Okay, skin being made up of three types of the epidermal tissue. That is mesodermal, endodermal, and epidermal. So the epidermis tissue, I hope everyone has understood that the function of the epidermis tissue is, or epidermal tissue is, to form the outer layer. We also call it as epidermis, forming the outer layer or covering. This is the function of the epidermis tissue. So we'll see what are the different types of the epidermis tissue also. Like it can be a squamous. It can. They are also, sorry, they are also epithelial. It's my bad. A better name for this is epithelial tissue. Instead of writing epidermal, we call it epithelial. So this was your epithelial. You have squamous epithelial, cuboidal epithelium, columnar epithelium. There are stratified epithelial. So there are different types of the epithelial tissue. Then after the epithelial tissue, you have connective tissue in your body. You also have a type of tissue which we call as the muscular tissue, of which your muscles are. So that is muscular tissue. Nervous tissue, of which all our nerve connections are made up of. That we call as the nervous tissue. So in animal tissue, there are different types of animal tissues. Got it? So can anyone tell what is the connective tissue?
Sir, it connects all the tissues together.
It connects.
The tissues together.
Okay, which all tissues together?
Sir, is it a uh,
It binds other tissues together.
yes, sir.
Okay. So the function of the connective tissue is to bind the different tissues together. Now we'll see the different types of the connective tissue also. There are two main types of this connective tissue. They are either loose connective tissue or dense connective tissue. Okay. Loose connective tissue, or it can be a dense connective tissue. A muscle tissue or muscular tissue, it is divided as smooth muscles, striated muscles, and cardiac muscles. So these are the three types of muscular tissues. Then you have the nervous tissue. The nervous tissue, it consists of nerve cells. It consists of interconnected nerve cells. And their function, the main function of the nervous tissue is transmission of nervous impulses from one place to another. So the way the nerve impulses, they are transmitted from one place to another, that is done by the nervous tissue. So it is the nervous tissue which is sending out messages from in our body from one place to another. For example, if someone pinches you, or if you have some whatever objects you see, whatever responses you are generating, okay, whatever you are thinking, all this is the result of the nervous tissue. Your nervous tissue is responsible for transmitting of these messages, for thinking of the brain, for the working of the brain. All this is done by the nervous. The work of the muscle tissue is to provide energy. Our muscle tissues, they are there to work. Whatever work we are able to do, that we are able to do because of the muscle. The connective tissue, as we discussed, the role of the connective tissue is to connect two or more tissues. Like here you have an example of loose connective tissue and a dense connective tissue. Okay. So in the connective tissue, you have adipose tissue, which is a fat adipose tissue, blood, lymph, they are the loose connective tissues. Okay. So you can consider here blood. So now do remember, blood is also a connective tissue. Blood is just not a fluid. Blood is not a non-living fluid. Blood is a connective tissue. Got it, everyone? So blood
Yes.
is a connective tissue. It is a loose connective tissue. So blood, lymph, okay, they are loose connective tissues. There are some other adipose tissue, areolar tissue. So you have areolar, adipose. These are the examples of loose connective tissue. Dense connective tissue, they include the bone, cartilages. Okay. They are all examples of dense connective tissue. For the epithelial tissue, the tissue which are forming the covering, for the epithelial tissue, we have squamous epithelium, we have columnar epithelium,
The cuboid,
cuboidal epithelium,
the squamous stratified.
yes, you have squamous stratified. So this is squamous stratified. Okay. And in columnar, you have two types. You can also have ciliated columnar. So ciliated columnar, still a type of columnar, or you can just consider it to be a separate type of epithelial, that is ciliated columnar. So a columnar tissue which has cilia present on its surface, that we call as ciliated columnar. So epithelial tissue, they are divided as squamous. Just give. So this is ciliated columnar. Ciliated columnar means a columnar tissue having the presence of cilia. That is called a ciliated columnar. Understood, everyone? Okay, so let me ask you quickly, Harshit.
Yes, sir.
So what are the different types of animal tissues present?
Connective,
Yes.
Yes.
Connective. Very good. Connective tissue and
epithelial,
epithelial tissue. Okay.
The muscular,
Muscular tissue or
muscular and
muscle tissue?
nervous tissue.
nervous
Nervous
tissue.
tissue. Okay. So see, this is the way to remember. Otherwise, you will forget everything. So for the animal tissue, there are four types of animal tissue: epithelial tissue, connective tissue, muscle tissue, and nervous tissue. Okay. So what is a squamous tissue?
So squamous
No,
means
not
the
squamous. Just one, not squamous. What is an epithelial tissue?
so epithelial tissue is normally the skin. It's
Is
the
Sir, it
skin,
forms the outer layer of any
outer
cell.
level of outer layer or also the inner layer of organs. The delicate lining of the organs also.
so yes, the epithelial tissue. They are the tissue which form the outer covering of a tissue of an organ. Tissues which form the outer covering of an organ. They are called as epithelial tissue. Okay. Now, Yukta,
Yes, sir.
can you tell me the different types of the squamous tissue? Epithelial tissue.
The squamous tissue, epithelial, squamous stratified epithelial, columnar epithelium, cuboidal epithelium, and ciliated columnar epithelium, which comes under columnar.
So
Okay.
it's stratified also.
Yeah, stratified squamous or squamous stratified.
Yes.
Okay. See, as we can identify them with the names only, like squamous means the cells which are flat in structure. Okay, it doesn't mean square. Squamous, it can just mean something like a square, but it means a flat shape. Okay, so squamous epithelial tissue is the tissue which is formed by very thin cells or flat cells. Got it? So the cells are quite flat. They have a very small thickness. For the columnar tissue or columnar epithelial, the cells are pillar-like. That means their height is or their width is greater than their length. So those are columnar epithelium. In the cuboidal epithelium, the cells appear to be cube-like. In the squamous stratified, as stratified means layer. So there are different layers of squamous tissue. Squamous tissue. Different layers of squamous tissue being arranged one over the other, okay, forming the stratified squamous epithelium. Then you have a ciliated columnar. Ciliated columnar means a columnar tissue with which has the presence of cilia. Presence of cilia means hair-like structures are present on the columnar tissue. Got it? Yes. So for the connective tissue, now let's see what is the connective tissue. So as we did that connective tissue is the tissue which which does the function of binding of the tissue. Two tissues. They are of two types: loose connective tissue and dense connective tissue. Okay. The loose connective tissue can be like blood, lymph, areolar tissue, adipose tissue. Okay, they are loose connective tissue. The dense connective tissue, they can be bone or cartilage. So do not consider our bone to be a dead organ. Some people think or some of the students, they think that bone is dead. A bone is not dead. Okay? A bone is made up of a living tissue, that is connective tissue. We'll see the structure of bone. So it is a tissue, it is a living part. Then muscular tissue. So muscular tissue, it consists of smooth muscles which are spindle shaped, striated muscles which have the presence of strips on them. So just as an example, if I draw the smooth muscles, so smooth muscles, they look something like this, spindle shape with presence of nucleus on them. So these are smooth muscles. You can have the striated muscles which have the presence of dark and white bands on them. So you have these striated muscles. Then cardiac muscles. So cardiac muscles or cardiac tissue, it consists of a connected tissue. So cardiac tissue is a tissue which does not get tired. Okay, it keeps on working throughout. It is the only tissue you can consider this to be tissue to be inside our
So
body.
like heart.
Yes, so it is our heart is made up of the cardiac tissue only. It keeps on working, it keeps on pumping the blood continuously without getting tired. So that is a cardiac tissue.
Sir,
Nervous,
Sir,
yes,
do ligaments come under this dense connective tissue?
which one?
Ligaments.
Yeah, ligaments and tendons, they also come under dense connective tissue.
Okay, sir.
Bone, ligament, tendon, cartilage, all of them, they come under dense connective tissue only. Okay. So let's start along with the diagram. I think theoretically everyone is clear. Everyone will be able to memorize this chart. Yes?
yes, sir.
Okay. So let's move on to the diagram and we see. So, plant tissues, today we'll be doing animal tissues. Epidermis. So this is just give me 1 minute till I open up my animal tissue also. Just give me 1 minute. Yes. So epithelial tissue, we had studied the epithelial tissue as squamous, cuboidal, and columnar. Connective tissue, we have said connective tissue proper, connective tissue as a skeletal tissue, and connective tissue as a fluid connective tissue, which we call as a loose connective tissue. A muscular tissue can be voluntary, involuntary, or cardiac. So voluntary, involuntary means the same thing, smooth muscle fibers and striated muscle fibers. The cardiac muscles we discussed. So then you have the nervous tissue. Okay, so let's see the epithelial tissue here. The epithelial tissue, it covers the surface and lines, tubes, and cavities. Lines, tubes, and cavities thus covers or protects the organ in the animal body. So it is commonly called as covering or lining tissue. Now we'll see the characteristics. So for lining tissue, cells are tightly packed form continuous sheet. They have only small amount of connecting material between them and almost no intercellular spaces. So you'll see that the epithelial tissue does not have any intercellular space. All epithelial usually separated from the underlying tissue by an extracellular fibrous basement membrane. So there is a basement membrane which is generally made up of a fat. So as all epithelium usually separated from underlying tissue by an extracellular fibrous basement. So here you can see that there is a fibrous basement membrane separating the epithelial tissue from the underlying tissue. That means from the tissue which it is covering. Okay. As the epithelial tissue covers another tissue or organ, so it is covered with the help of a basement membrane and the tissue lining on it. So just see here, this diagram is basically the diagram of squamous epithelium. Yes, I'll be back in 1 minute. Just give me 1 minute. Okay, so I'm back again. Now see the squamous epithelium. It consists of square type of or flat cells. You can see the cells are flat. They have a very small thickness. So squamous epithelium. Okay. Also, what all things you should be able to remember about these tissues. In all the tissues, you should be able to remember their location. That is where you will find them in your body. Okay. So simple epithelial, that is a squamous epithelial tissue, it forms a delicate lining, a simple lining. So where all can we find this? We can find this in the lining of esophagus, linings of mouth, lining of blood vessels, lining of alveoli of lungs, lining of Bowman's capsule of nephron. So nephron is the unit of kidney. Okay. See, do not confuse between a nephron and a neuron. Okay. A neuron is the unit of the nervous tissue. That is a nerve cell, which is also called as a neuron. Whereas a nephron is a unit of kidney. Okay. So if you are asked the lining of kidney or in the kidney, you have Bowman's capsule of nephron where the filtration of the blood takes place. So squamous epithelium, it is found in lining of esophagus, lining of mouth. That means if you just cut your cheek cells from inside of your mouth, if you take out the cheek cells and if you observe them, so they will appear like the diagram shown over here, which is the squamous epithelial tissue. Hmm? So see, there is a basement membrane and the thickness is very small. The cells are extremely thin and fat and form a delicate lining. So there is a very thin lining. The next one here is cuboidal epithelium. You can see the size of the cuboidal epithelium. They have a considerable height. They are cube shaped. So every cell, it appears to be of the size of a cube. You can see they are having almost the same length, breadth, and height. So cuboidal epithelium. The cells are cube shaped. They form the lining of kidney tubule and ducts of salivary gland. So what are they forming? See, kidney tubule and nephron, they are two different things. Nephron is also a part of kidney, so do not consider everywhere. Read the question carefully. If the question says that which tissue forms the lining of Bowman's capsule of nephron, so that will be squamous epithelial. If you are asked that which epithelial forms the lining of kidney tubule and ducts of salivary gland, then it is cuboidal epithelium. Duct of the salivary gland means the duct through which saliva is poured into the mouth. So only that duct part is lined with cuboidal epithelium. So you can understand that this cuboidal epithelium, they are not secretory in their function. They are not secreting anything. They are not secreting anything. Then you have columnar epithelium. Columnar means pillar-like. So the epithelial tissue which are pillar-like, they are called as columnar. Pillar-like, they will be there like their height will be too much. Like here you can see, they are pillar-like. Their height is great, big. So it consists of tall cells and it is found in the inner lining of intestine where absorption and secretion occurs. See,
Sir,
so
what are
which
those? Sir, what are those yellow colored things between the cells?
yes,
Sir, what are those yellow things between the cells?
they are the cells only which are facilitating the movement of substances.
So means
They help in facilitate the movement of the substances. That means, see what the function they will perform is like if they are present in the small intestine. So what will be their role? Their role will be absorbing the glucose molecules from the food. So from food, these absorb the glucose molecule, okay, and they transfer it through here. Through here, they transfer it to the blood.
okay, sir.
Okay. So this is your absorption. They perform the function of absorption, like they are going to absorb the nutrients from the food. Whatever nutrients have been digested from the food, like your food may contain carbohydrates, fat, vitamins, minerals. So everything will be absorbed by the columnar epithelium. Got it? So columnar is the name columnar means pillar like, and they are absorb. They perform the function of absorption as well as secretion. Secretion means wherever they need to secrete some juices or some other materials, so they are secretory in function also, like forming the glands. We know that. Okay. So see, they will be present where absorption is required. They will be present where secretion is required. For example, the glands. Just we did about the salivary glands. So the salivary glands, they will have the presence of columnar epithelium. Okay. But their ducts had a lining of squamous epithelium. Is it clear to everyone? Yes, everyone is clear. So depending on their function, depending on their roles, the columnar epithelium, they are divided as either ciliated glandular or sensory epithelium. Like for ciliated epithelium, the cells have cilia at their free end, which help in movement of small particles. That is, lines the fallopian tubes and the respiratory tract. Okay. So in the respiratory tract, these cilia are present, which allow the movement of the particles. Okay. In the fallopian tube also, there is present of ciliated columnar epithelium. So they facilitate the movement of ovum. In class 8th, I hope everyone has understood about the female reproductive system. So where you had studied about the presence of the ovary, and from the ovary you have studied that from the ovary ovum is produced. So when the ovum is fertilized, it travels through this fallopian tube. So this movement is facilitated with the help of cilia present over here. Okay. So those columnar epithelium which have the presence of cilia, they are called ciliated columnar. Okay. Then glandular epithelium, that means the the columnar epithelium which form the glands. Glands means it can be pituitary gland. Okay. If you have the pituitary gland, then salivary glands, okay, gastric glands, that means the glands of the stomach which release the digestive juices, the intestinal glands. So these glands, they are pituitary glands, salivary glands. So wherever the glands are there, like we know that salivary gland, sorry, not the pituitary gland. Just 1 minute. It's not the pituitary gland. Pituitary glands, they're different. They perform the secretion of the hormones. So it is the salivary glands, gastric glands, intestinal glands. They have the presence of a glandular epithelium. Then the sensory epithelium, cells modify to form sensory cells. That is, sensory cells are those cells which can sense. So they are also made up of columnar epithelium. You'll see some examples for this one also. Okay, is the diagram clear to everyone for this? For the columnar epithelium? The columnar epithelium can be identified by having a basement membrane. There will be a basement, and after the basement, you have these pillar-like tissues. Sensory epithelium, that is, cells modify to form sensory cells. Those cells which receive stimuli, for example, rod cells and cone cells. So, the rod and cone cells of your eye, you can say that they are made up of columnar tissue. Got it? The rod and cone cells, they are made up of columnar tissue, columnar epithelium. The taste buds, which are present, the taste buds, organ of body of the internal ear, they are made up of columnar epithelium. So columnar epithelium, it has a very important role. It can form sensory tissue also. It can form secretory tissues. It can also facilitate movement by having the presence of cilia. Then the last of this is the squamous epithelium. In the squamous epithelium here, you'll find the presence of, you'll find the squamous tissue being arranged layer by layer above a basement membrane. So above a basement membrane, you have a layer by layer arrangement of the squamous epithelium. Okay. So this layer by layer arrangement of the squamous epithelium, it gives rise to stratified squamous epithelium. So skin epithelial cells, they are arranged in many layers to prevent wear and tear. Since they are arranged in a pattern of layers, the epithelial is called stratified squamous. Got it? Okay. So, Yukta. Yukta.
Yes, sir.
Okay. What are the different types of the epithelial tissue?
Sir, columnar epithelium, squamous epithelium,
Hmm.
columnar, squamous, columnar epithelium, tuberal epithelium. Under squamous epithelium, we have stratified squamous epithelium, and under columnar epithelium, we have ciliated columnar epithelium
Okay.
and glandular epithelium.
Okay. Rohit.
Sir,
Yeah. Where do we find squamous epithelium?
sir,
In your
in
body, where it is expected to find out the squamous
the
epithelium.
skin.
The skin.
Yes, sir.
The skin has just stratified squamous epithelium.
Stratified squamous.
So, Harshit,
Sir.
Harshit,
Yeah, sir.
yeah, where can we find the squamous epithelium?
The squamous epithelium, it can be found in the inner lining of our
Inner lining of
jaws, cheeks and
jaws. Okay, so inner lining of the mouth or buccal cavity you will find. Mhm. The inner lining of the mouth, the lining of the Bowman's capsule, inner lining of the Bowman's capsule of kidney inside the nephron over there. Then the lining. Is there
So near the
anywhere else?
esophagus,
Yes.
they're in the esophagus and lining of the blood vessels.
The lining of
Blood vessels and in the esophagus.
esophagus.
Yes, sir.
The lining of the esophagus, I think it, yes. Not the esophagus, the lining of the alveoli.
Sir, what about the esophagus?
Hmm?
So then where will esophagus come?
Yeah, esophagus also, I think. They are also, yes, see. Lining of the esophagus also. Lining of the esophagus, lining of the mouth. Okay, just 1 minute. 1 minute. 1 minute. Because, okay, so see the squamous epithelium, they are present, they their extreme cells are extremely thin and fat and form a delicate lining. They form the lining of esophagus, lining of mouth, lining of blood vessels, lining of alveoli of lungs. See, alveoli of lungs, they are very thin and delicate. They allow the passage of oxygen. Okay.
Yes, sir. Okay.
So, so will you be able to recall now where all the squamous tissue is present? Harshit, Rohit, Yukta.
Sir.
Yes, will you be able to recall where all we can find the lining, where all we can find out the squamous epithelium?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this part I think should be your homework. You should be writing down where all we can find out this epithelial tissue. The squamous tissue, forming the lining of esophagus, lining of
Lining of
mouth,
heart, lining of blood vessels, lining of alveoli,
alveoli,
lungs,
and in the kidney, lining of Bowman's capsule.
of
Okay.
nephron.
Yes. And yeah, of course, of the Bowman's capsule is present in nephron only. It's like this. I'm just drawing you a diagram to explain where we find this Bowman's capsule. Here, it's a structure something like this. So it's something like this. So this completes. This is your a nephron is a complete filtration unit. Okay, so see, this complete unit is your nephron. Okay, and out of this, only this part is called as the Bowman's capsule. So this part is your Bowman's capsule, and this complete part is your nephron. So Bowman's capsule is a part of the nephron. It is a unit of kidney. Okay, then where all we find the cuboidal epithelium?
Sir, in the lining of the kidney tubes and like in the ducts of the salivary gland.
Lining of the
Kidney tubes.
kidney tubules.
Sorry, kidney tubule.
Okay. See, the kidney tubules, these are these ones. What I say, like just we saw I just drew the diagram for nephron. Okay. So this was your Bowman's capsule. Just give me 1 minute. So like we just saw that this is your Bowman's capsule. So Bowman's capsule looks like this. Now see, this part is the Bowman's capsule. Okay. Now this pipe which is going on, this is your kidney tubule. Okay. So the lining of these kidney tubules, it is made with the cuboidal epithelium. Okay. Whereas the lining of the Bowman's capsule is made with the squamous epithelium. Right. So okay. What are the different types of the cuboidal epithelium? No type. Okay, types of the columnar epithelium. What are the different types of columnar epithelium?
So ciliated columnar epithelium, glandular glandular epithelium, and sensory epithelium.
Which one?
So ciliated, glandular, and sensory.
Yes, ciliated, glandular, and sensory. Very good. So where all do we find the ciliated epithelium?
So respiratory tract.
Yes, the respiratory tract and
So oviducts,
yeah, oviduct or fallopian tube. Oviduct or fallopian tube. Very good. So it's nice to see that people are able to recall this. So the columnar epithelium, it is divided into three types: ciliated columnar, glandular columnar, or sensory columnar. So ciliated columnar is required. Or ciliated columnar also forms the portion of the this alimentary canal inside the intestine. The main function of the columnar epithelium is absorption and secretion. Like the digestive products, they are absorbed in the alimentary canal with the help of columnar epithelium. Okay. So will you be able to recall this? So for today, your homework is just clearing all these types of epithelial tissues, looking at them, drawing the diagram, identifying their places where they are present, where all we find those columnar epithelium, where all we find the squamous epithelium, okay, the different types of the columnar, the different types of the epithelial tissue. Okay, I hope it will be clear to everyone.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we end up the class now, or just draw the diagram. I just want you, can you draw the diagram as a homework?
Okay, sir.
Okay, so draw this diagram as a homework tissue, and after this, since it's completed, and now we'll be doing the connective tissue. So in the next class, we'll do connective
Can
tissue.
you share the research and can you share this pic of this chart?
You want the pic of this chart or
Yes,
the
sir.
one which I made?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'll be the one which I made. I'll be sharing that in the group, and this one I think I will try to upload on the YChat.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Bye all of you. See you again next time.
Bye, sir. Thank you.
Fine, sir, myself.